Hey, Fat Cat. What you reading over there?
Great question, Mr. Penguin. It's a book of our sponsor ad reads.
Oh, why is it blank?
Because we don't have any fucking sponsors.
Put on your big Hollywood sunglasses and light the torch, because it's cellar time. Welcome to the Crack Cellar. As the prophecy was once fist-fucked. I'm Two-Spirit Penguin Daniel.
And I'm Broadcaster Nickels.
And today we're here to discuss two games that I have nary winked at or even sniffed, called Spellbreak and Hyperscape. Broadcaster Nickels, this has come to my attention that you feel it is imperative that we discuss a threat, an existential threat to video game history. Please elaborate.
In a world where Epic Games Store actually has a game that I want to fucking play, but I have morals, and there's a line in the sand, all right? And I will not go to fucking Epic Games Store, but I do want to play Spellbreak. I do. I really do. And I'm a little mad that it's there. This is the first game that's come out on Epic Games Store where I've looked at it and I'm just like, damn it, I really want to play that.
Well, first of all, somewhere Cliffy B is jerking off to his wife being fucked by a stranger while crying at the thought of you not wanting to go to the Epic Games Store. And you should feel shame for that, Broadcaster Nickels. You should feel deep, deep shame.
I think Cliffy B could give a flying fuck. He's laughing to the bank, cashing them checks. Cliffy B, whether the video game money or video game industry wants to, well, I guess video game money is appropriate, wants to believe it or not, Cliffy B is cash money. All right.
Yeah.
He was cash money, and that cash money has sustained him to 2020. All right. Probably more than your ass in 2020. All right. So let's be real here. Anybody that's willing to doubt Cliffy B.
Cliffy B is like the great Gatsby of the 21st century.
So lonely. He just wants to roll into, Cliffy B just wants to roll in with the boys on a Saturday and make another $1 billion IP. You know? That's all Cliffy B wants to do. Make $1 billion IPs with the boys.
Yeah, he is kind of the DJ Khaled of video game developers. I could see him just like walking down a random hallway and just putting his head through a window and just screaming, "Another one!" So what do you think about your BattlEye anti-cheat? So, you know,
that's for Hyperscape.
This one day, I don't care. Spellbreak is, we're done with that.
What
are we talking about, dude? Spellbreak still? Okay,
Catch
so
up.
It was on the Epic Games Store. We mocked Cliffy B. That's the end, right? Was there a third chapter to Spellbreak you wanted to elaborate on, Broadcaster Nickels?
Well, I just wanted to bring us back to the days when Cliffy B was doing tournaments with Adam Carrera. You know what I'm saying? Not Adam Carrera. Was it Adam? No, Kevin. What's that fuck's name?
Kevin Ferreira.
Kevin Ferreira.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a guy named Adam, but I forget what his last name is. But he did like the video game show back when it was still ZDTV.
Yeah.
And then
with
he like
Morgan Webb.
Well, Morgan Webb joined later. It was originally just him. Then Morgan Webb joined when it became Tech TV, I think. But that guy's a real piece of work.
Yeah. Morgan Webb always looked like she wanted anal too.
Oh, yeah. She's like a quintessential Rock Springs hood rat.
I just looked in her eyes and I was just like, that girl likes to be ass fucked. No doubt. There goes our sponsors.
This episode sponsored by Astroglide. Does somebody spell Astroglide?
It's kind of like that old Soul Glow commercial from Coming to America, but instead it's Astroglide, and it's just let your whole glow. Instead of soul, it's whole. Gotcha. Boom.
Well, I think we've covered Spellbreak pretty thoroughly. You want to move on to Hyperscape?
Yes.
So the biggest threat of our time, right? So later on in this episode, we're going to review a little show called Westworld. And in that show, there's also an existential threat similar to the one seen in Hyperscape, known as the BattlEye anti-cheat apparatus.
Broadcaster Nickels. Made me nervous just looking at the initial form. It wasn't even agreeing to anything. They're just like, this is what it does, okay? Question mark. I'm like, no, not okay.
Yeah, when you first brought it up, when you had me installing that, and you're like, oh, it looks like it has BattlEye anti-cheat. Like little anime expletives popped above my head, like in an RPG. Like the exclamation mark thing just popped above my head. I'm like, wait a second. I remember BattlEye for some reason, and it's not good.
Neither.
And as we found out, BattlEye anti-cheat literally just takes a snapshot of your hard drive and sends it out. Like, how often?
It's corporate spyware.
It is.
In the guise of fucking anti-cheat. That is literally what it is. And don't take my word for it, children, fans, crack sellers alike. Go look on your fellow Reddits or whatever the fuck you want to look. There's actually a few famous people out there, whatever the kids are reading nowadays.
Go to Dig, all right?
Go to Dig. I don't know.
Keep it old school.
Dude, after this episode,
does that
Two
say
Spirit
Shalom
Penguin, or one of his spirits, is going to have to explain to me what the fuck Dig is. But right now, while you're digging, realize that there are people out there that have done the homework on BattlEye long before I ever had my first run-in with it today. And it turns out my assumptions of BattlEye were completely true. And it was actually far worse than I thought. It's a fucking evil little piece of shit program. I can't believe it's not being talked about more. This thing has permanent read access to your hard drive and sends it back to its master server. And not only that, but they were already caught by a hacking group that hacked the company that developed BattlEye for Ubisoft, and they were keeping all the bin logs and dump files for everybody's hard drives. What were they doing with this information? I mean, we could only speculate in this wonderful world, but I ain't signing up for that shit. That's the type of shit I actively try to opt out of, and I feel like everyone should actively try to opt out of. I feel like there's a notion going on in this world nowadays where it's just like, well, you can't beat it, so you just join it, and everyone just hits the fucking accept button on the EULAs and everything. And I'm a victim of that too, to some extent. I'll hit accept on the EULAs because no one's going to read that shit. But when you have something so blatantly nefarious as BattlEye, it's pretty bad. It's like they're trying to mock you almost. They're like, look at how fucking shady this is, but you don't read any of this, so it doesn't fucking matter. Yeah. Well, guess what? The joke's on you, fuckheads. I read a paragraph, and I didn't like what I read.
Yeah, it is tough, but you can make anti-cheat that isn't a spying apparatus. It is out there. There are other versions of it that work that aren't taking fully loaded snapshots of your hard drive and loading
just like
them.
The cure to cancer and AIDS and everything else. They want to make you think it's a fairy tale that doesn't exist.
But yeah, it's sad. I mean, Windows 10 kind of does the same thing, but not as badly. And a lot of people just don't realize how ubiquitous data spying is now. It's like every single application and website you go to almost is spying on you in some way. There is really no privacy anymore, but you can choose to draw a line somewhere. And I think that BattlEye anti-cheat might be a good place to draw that line.
Yeah. Well, it's a multi-layered system, I think it always starts with the concept of free, and then When something's free, a lot of people tend to immediately default themselves as somehow as a customer. But how can you possibly be a customer when you haven't invested anything in the product? And it's obviously took quite a bit of money to develop said product. So why are you even here? You know, people immediately default their role to being the customer in these situations. And it's like, no, not at all. You got, you're the get. The customer are the board, are the investors, the advertisers and shit. Those are the customers because they want your fucking data that you guys give away for free.
Very true.
Anyways, that's why I don't like BattlEye children. That's why you shouldn't either.
And speaking of things that you probably shouldn't like, but you probably will, Broadcaster Nickels, are you ready to get to our preview of The Batman?
Light me up. Send me to the moon like that bitch out of Scrampton.
Promotional consideration provided by...
There's something floating in my whiskey. An autobiography written by Fat Cat Nickels. Pick up your copy at Barnes & Nobles and Amazon today.
And we're back with our preview of The Batman. Broadcaster Nickels, you saw the trailer for this movie, correct?
Extensively.
Okay.
I watch it every night before I go to bed.
Dude, does Pattinson's Bruce Wayne not look super legit? Like, I'm really picky about Batman's and specifically, like, the Bruce Wayne and the Batman. Like, I separate them and I kind of judge them separately. And in this trailer, I saw a very good take on Bruce Wayne with just amazing eye acting from Pattinson. Like in that scene where he's in like the bank that's being robbed. I don't know if it's a bank or maybe it's a police department. You know what I'm saying though, like some building in Gotham. And you see Bruce Wayne kind of just staring with like this cold stare that totally felt like an amazing Bruce Wayne right off the bat.
For sure. Yeah, you get a lot of energy. It's funny. I don't even know if the word energy is apt because I don't think you visually there's not a lot of energy coming from Pattinson, but I don't know. If you're a fan of the universe of Batman, his low like presence energy is exactly it couples really well with the role. That's what I picked up on immediately.
Yeah.
This is like his 1,000-yard stare, you know, his way, because that's what kind of Batman. Well, at least when he's Bruce Wayne, you know, because he can't just be Batman. You know, he's sitting there, he's being a keen observer, you know, analyzing the situation and shit like that. And that's exactly what you get in those first few seconds, you know, when he's doing that 1,000-yard stare.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I'm really picky about Bruce Wayne specifically. Like, I feel like anyone can be Batman. You're in a suit, you're doing choreographed martial arts battles, whatever. You don't really need to be an actor to be Batman. Most of the acting that comes from being Batman is just in your voice, your Batman voice, which also, by the way, I'm going to say Pattinson's Batman voice, very good. I like it.
You know, I'm not even a stickler of it, so I'm not a good base of judgment. I've always thought the whole deep voice Batman thing, ever since Christian Bale at least, has been hokey. You know, because I'm from the generation of memes, and Christian Bale's Batman voice was one of the original memes. You know,
you're more of an Adam West guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just I've kind of learned to embrace the cringe, and that's exactly what I identified that as.
It's 2020, bro.
As,
you have to embrace the cringe.
Yeah.
There's no escape.
It's like, so when I hear a new Batman voice, I'm like, well, you know, it's good enough. Or I really like it.
Yeah.
But I didn't really get that from Pattinson personally.
One of my biggest criticisms of the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy is Christian Bale's Batman voice.
It's over the top.
It was. And I love Christopher Nolan movies, and I love two of the three Christopher Nolan Batman movies, but I'm going to say that I don't think Christian Bale was that great of a Batman. He's better than Batfleck, but that's not saying much.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard just because Batman is every single actor that's played Batman has been a great actor. So it's really hard to go back and just like say, well, Christian Bale was badass for the time. You know, Michael Keaton was badass for the time. But this guy is the best Batman. It's just like, I don't know. I feel like it's not fair because every Batman we're really talking about is a product of his time.
Including the ultimate Batman, the Batman that will live forever in the annals of history, George Clooney's Nipplegate Batman.
Again, a great actor, now pedophile, kind of going down on the roster. Rest in pepperonis, George. But again, great actor for the time, parentheses, brackets, whatever you want to do. We got bat nipples for the first time. Some would say that's a clown show, and I would tend to agree. But it was a good Batman flick. I liked it. It was pretty fun. I mean, we got to see Arnold Schwarzenegger as fucking Mr. Freeze. Prepare to freeze.
Yeah.
Take two of these. It will chill Alfred's blood. It will save his life.
Do you remember the cringy Robin backstory?
I remember the dude that I remember at a young age identifying the sex appeal between Robin and Poison Ivy and saying to myself, leaving the theater, those two are definitely banging off the set. And I was only probably like 9.
Intuitive. Well, I can confirm they definitely were. Uma Thurman was pretty hot back in the day, and Robin, you know, he was Robin, so he ain't gonna turn down Uma Thurman, you know that.
Probably some weird BDSM shit while he's in his Robin uniform. Who knows?
Yeah, I think the only thing that guy's done since Batman and Robin is like CSI Winchester or some shit.
I was really trying to hold back my laughter there. That was a sick burn.
Well, this is not an origin story. You know, everyone wants to do origin stories for everything now. It's always like, oh, it's a prequel. It's an origin story. Not this. This is Batman supposedly in year 2. That's what they're saying. Year 2 Batman.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of looks like year 2-ish. Year 2, year 3-ish to me.
Yeah. Which I find interesting because I have heard that this movie is going to tie into Joker. But the age disparity between Bruce Wayne and Joker and how old he is in this movie would just make Joaquin Phoenix way too old. Not only that, but who is the actual villain of this movie? Because, yeah, we do see some henchmen that have the Joker face paint that actually looks like the Joker from the Christopher Nolan Batmans, which I found really interesting. And we also see Colin Farrell's Penguin in this trailer. We also see some version of Catwoman in this trailer. The overall narrative of the trailer is Riddler.
Are you talking about the thugs with the white and black face paint? That'd be interesting because that's not what I thought when I saw them. I didn't think those were Joker.
It literally, dude, go look at a picture of Heath Ledger's Joker and then look at those hooligans from the trailer. It looks like the same makeup artist did it.
No, I mean it's black and white, and not white and red and green hair. They look like more like Mexican, like Day of the Dead almost themed type stuff. They even had the stitching, the black and white stitched lips look like.
Damn,
yeah,
I didn't get any of that from it.
Yeah, that's the vibe I got, like almost like some Mexicana type vibes.
Well, you might be right because it doesn't seem like the Joker's actually in this movie. We know for sure Penguin and Catwoman are because we see them in the trailer. But then they also imply Riddler is going to be in the movie, and they kind of imply he's the main villain based off of all of like the meta of the trailer, where it's showing like the little clues and the hints and the card that's left for Batman, and then like this narrative at the end, in the very end of the trailer, where he's talking to someone like in disembodied voice. That I think is supposed to be the Riddler.
I think that's what we're led to believe in the trailer. Yeah.
But I'm going to give you a dark horse fucking theory for why it might not be the Riddler. Go back and re-listen to that again and tell me it doesn't sound like a little bit like Joaquin Phoenix, but maybe aged. Like they lowered the pitch of his voice a little bit.
I mean, that'd be interesting. I'll take a look at it. I mean, my personal take is if that theory is true and they're going to connect the two movies right off the bat in this movie, I think they would take, I would assume they'd take more a subtle approach, and it wouldn't be the same Joker, which they have room to do, not only in a comical standpoint, or a comic canon standpoint, because there were 3 Jokers, Arthur Fleck not being one of them. But on another point, it being a movie and a director has a little bit of creative leeway to begin with, so he can use his creative leeway combined with the fact that Arthur Fleck was never one of the comic Jokers, and just kind of make a storyline that Arthur Fleck is the inspiration for the real Joker to come. And I think we talked about this in our Joker podcast a little bit, that I don't think Arthur Fleck's Joker is
actually Joker.
I don't think he actually is going to be the iconic Joker that me and you and everyone else in the world kind of has grown up and thinks about when you hear the name. Purple jacket, poison flower, red lipstick, well-groomed, laughs, failed comedian.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one because I feel like he did some very Joker things at the end of that movie. They cemented him as an actual Joker and not inspiration. But I also see your argument as well. Yeah. So
that's where the creative leeway comes in, where it's like, obviously, because you never really identify where a director, I should rephrase that. Even when you can identify when a director or a writer has cherry-picked, if you will, bits and pieces from iconic storylines out there, especially from comic-based material, and then you see it pop up in the movie, and then your mind immediately starts going with, oh, if they're doing this, then A, B, and C has to happen. But in reality, like I said, it could just be a little bit of creative leeway. They just wanted to shout out to people that would recognize it. There's nothing more to it, if you will. And I think that's what makes Joker so great, because at the same time, it was just this one-off thing where they could just write it off if it wasn't successful, and if it was successful, it's this one-off beautiful thing that people praise. There's just this risk. So it makes sense for Arthur Fleck not to be the eventual big Kingpin Joker that they'll use if there are big plans for the DC universe still. That's what I'm ultimately trying to say. He's not the big Kingpin Joker that will show up if the Justice League and Robert Pattinson's Batman ever meet up, Right now, those two universes kind of stand alone. But if this is really the trajectory, the ultimate trajectory is to combine these universes and stuff like that, I don't see Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, as great as he fucking was, being that role. So
yeah, well, you might be right. There's one thing that stands out to me, and it's Joaquin Phoenix himself. He's gone on the record a few times in kind of a weird way, where he starts off by saying, I did this movie because it was going to be a one-off kind of artistic version of a comic book movie that I'd never have to do a sequel for. And in the very beginning, we're all like, we're not doing sequels to this. This is just what it is. This is a movie and we're doing it and we're moving on. But then he always follows it up with, but then I saw the movie and I was like, fuck, this is too good. Let's make a sequel. And I told Todd Phillips. Let's start doing stories for a second movie. Let's like do this. Like Joaquin Phoenix got really into the idea of a sequel after the fact, after he saw the movie post-production and realized how good it was. Now, you can take that exuberance and that enthusiasm and kind of keep it self-contained. You can kind of just say, okay, this is Todd Phillips. I don't want to make this like a DC thing. I want this to just be a Todd Phillips thing. I want to make another movie with Todd Phillips. Or you can take that enthusiasm and be like, oh, you're making a new Batman movie with Robert Pattinson over there? Sure, I'll be the Joker. Let's make it a surprise. Let's not tell anyone. Let's not announce it. Let's make it super secret. So when people go to this movie and at the very end, I'm revealed as the villain, they're going to go batshit crazy. What do you think about that? Because it's a weird one because it's so hard to keep a secret in Hollywood. When people come back and reprise roles, everyone knows about it before the movie comes out usually. But secrets do sometimes get kept. Every once in a while, something happens and a secret's kept till the very end, and then people actually are genuinely surprised when something comes out and they don't see something coming. What do you think about the possibilities of that?
Sure. I mean, I'd be ecstatic, and it's definitely possible. And I mean, I again, like to clarify, I don't think it's not really low for the possibility for Joaquin Phoenix's Joker to show up in this Batman. I'm just arguing that he's not the Joker, right? Even though his presence is there and he's still in the movies, I just don't think he'll ultimately be that role in the end.
So you think even if he shows up in this movie as the Joker, that he's not the real Joker still?
Nope.
Yeah. That's interesting.
It's not attainable. There's only one way it goes down. Only one possible way they can bullshit their Joaquin's Joker into existence into the far future, where all these people age and there's other events going down that takes years past, and somehow Joaquin Phoenix's Joker is still roughly the same age from his Brooklyn-esque background or whatever. You know, he's not the traditional Joker. Is the Flashpoint Flash movie coming up? Michael Keaton's Batman and Ben Affleck's Batman's coming up in that movie. And first, you know, Flashpoint's based on essentially Flash fucking up the timeline, trying to save his mom, and essentially killing the original Batman in the event where his two parents died, but instead it was his mom and Bruce instead. And Thomas, his father, survives and becomes Batman, and an evil Batman at that. A motherfucker that wields 245s and just deals justice around the city.
Yeah, the Thomas Wayne Batman is more like Punisher.
Yeah, so it's like I could see maybe them using that asset over there on the back burner for now to somehow spin these universes together, where Joaquin Phoenix's Joker somehow makes it out on the other side of what the final universe looks like.
Yeah.
I could see that.
Well, yeah, I could see that too. I think DC right now has like an embarrassment of riches, and they don't know what to do with it. They're like, well, all of our recent movies have been well received, like all of them for like the last couple 3 years or so. Like ever since the ever since Justice League, all their movies post Justice League have gotten pretty, at least decent to really good reviews. Yeah. So I don't think they really know how to keep it going. Like, I think they have people desperately trying to figure out, okay, we have a good thing going here. People like us more than Marvel right now, by the grace of God. How do we keep this going? And I don't think they know right now. And I think we're about to find out what their theory is on it based off of the Flash movie you're talking about and this Batman movie.
Yeah. My personal fan theory is that they're doing a take on the dark universe versus the multiverse. You know, because like in the canon of comic DC universal theory, or whatever you will, is there's all these different universes they call world 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you know, to infinity or whatever. And that's the multiverse. And then beneath it is this one realm called the Darkverse, where there's all these like dark, evil, villainous versions of everybody. Right?
Yeah.
But it's also just a chaotic world. I'm hoping maybe they're gonna like spin that type of concept into maybe their own version in the cinematic universe, and maybe have Robert Pattinson and Joaquin Phoenix's style movies in the dark, Black Label DC movies, and Ben Affleck and the Justice League and all that, like Jason Momoa and as Aquaman and as Arthur Curry and shit. All that is in the light multiverse, DC. And then maybe one day they can have a world colliding event like what's just happened recently in actual comics. They can do something like that far down the line when they've proven themselves to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good theory. The reason that I kind of have this inescapable link in my brain between Joker and the Batman movie is really the trailer itself. The direction, the color scheme, and the tone just all fall in line with Todd Phillips' Joker movie. It's all really kind of subdued colors, very dark, a lot of orange tones.
Yep. Grimy.
Yeah.
Sweaty. Dirty.
It looks like a follow-up. Like if you were just to put me into a bubble and show me a trailer of Joker and then follow it up with a trailer of the Batman, I would watch those two and I'd be like, yeah, those are two movies connected. They look obviously very similar.
I'd be convinced they were the same movie.
Yeah.
If you cut it up right, I'd be like, oh, this is a Batman movie starring Batman and Joker.
For sure. You could easily do that. That's a great point. If you did cut it up like that, you would be totally fooled. So, yeah, it could go either way, but I find it interesting how much is left up to interpretation right now on this movie. Even with this trailer out, there's just so much unknown. Like, we're talking about who is the actual villain. Broadcaster Nickels, who do you actually think is the villain of this movie based off the trailer? Like, if you just had to choose one, who is it?
The Riddler.
You think it's the Riddler?
Well, for one, I think there's multiple villains.
Well, but no, there is multiple villains. But who is the big villain? Who's the big villain?
The Riddler. I think it's the Riddler.
Well, that's definitely what the trailer tries to make you think, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think it's double subversion. In my theory, is that they're telling there was, everyone in the media kind of telling you that supposedly the villain's going to be the Riddler in the movie. Then the trailer drops. The trailer's pretty much literally telling you it's going to be the Riddler, but they don't identify the Riddler. They make you assume who the Riddler is. And I think that's where the double subversion comes in. Is that the person that our brains easily said, oh, that must be the Riddler. He's the masked guy with the glasses. Has the muffled voice, and that guy has a mask that looks like it would muffle his voice. And we're just assuming because this guy seems to be pulling all the strings and the Riddler's supposed to be the main villain, that la la la. And I think that's where the subversion lies.
Interesting. Yeah. Personally, I've heard rumors that this could be a tie-in, and that, the Gotham Knights game that we covered on our last episode, Broadcaster Nickels, do you recall that at all?
Yeah.
How could I not? A cavalcade of Robins simping. I have heard theories that Gotham Knights might actually be a tie-in licensed game for the Batman movie. What do you think about that theory? Because the main thing that connects the two is the Court of Owls. A lot of people seem to think the Court of Owls is involved in this movie.
The Batman coming up?
Yes. It's all really crackpot type shit. I mean, you remember Metal Gear Zero? We're talking Metal Gear Zero style shit here. People are like freeze framing like frames of the trailer, and they're like, "There's an owl mask on that wall. I see it. Court of Owls confirmed."
What's your skill level in Photoshop CS6?
That would be Grandmaster.
That rank doesn't exist out of tournaments. Wrong. False. Fact check.
Fact check false. So you are into comic books post the 90s. I'm not as much, but there was one comic that I did catch in the early 2000s where it was a Batman comic and it had a new villain in it called Hush. Do you know anything about Hush?
Yeah.
So I've also heard that he might be the villain of this movie and that it's like a total like subterfuge thing where they're trying to make you think it's the Riddler, but it's actually Hush. What do you think about that theory?
I mean, the reason why I don't think it's Hush is because he's not well known.
Yeah, he isn't.
That's the only reason why. I could, if you wanted to argue, he shows up in the movie as ends up being one of the villains in the background, pulling the strings of the other villains, and he'll be in the next movie. Totally believable, and I'd totally be down for that because Hush is underrated. It needs to be brought out. Yeah, but I don't think
he's like a diehard villain.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, I don't see him coming. I easily see if the Court of Owls is getting brought in, then I would have to say Hugo Strange has to get brought in, and a few other people have to get brought in, and I feel like that would all be rushing too much at some point. The fact that they're giving us Penguin, what's his name, Falcone. I think Falcone was in the trailer. What it seemed like.
Yeah, you thought that guy, like that big like press conference scene with the commissioner behind him. That's what you thought that was.
Well, I think it was.
You thought it was Falcone?
No, not that part. There was an actor in the trailer where I thought I was like, that must have been Falcone because he had some gangsters around him, and it clearly wasn't the Penguin or any other identifiable
I don't know what scene
villain.
you're talking about.
Well, Falcone just looks like an Italian mobster.
Yeah, like because they show a scene where like there's a bunch of like news cameras and there's microphones being hung in front of a dude who looks like a mobster with Commissioner Gordon right behind him, and that looks like Falcone to me. That's not who you thought Falcone was?
No, I think that's the mayor of the city. Who's probably corrupt as fuck in this movie. He looks shady as fuck.
That could be true. Who did you think Falcone was? Because I'm blanking on another
I don't know.
scene.
I'm gonna have to go back in the trailer now because now you got me second guessing. But I swear there was like somebody. It was really quick, but I just assume that Falcone's gonna be in it. Penguin is definitely in it. Riddler's definitely in it because he's in the credits. Catwoman's in it.
Let's just all pray Barbara Gordon isn't in it.
If she is, let's do the right thing, all right? Let's do the right thing. Let's call her Bad Batgirl and give her a pole to dance on and let her save Gotham the right way. You know what I'm saying?
Entering the main stage. Oh, shit.
She likes to be called Oracle on the night shift. Let her press your buttons the right way. I don't know. I'm not a porno DJ.
You just haven't watched enough Showgirls.
Shit, man.
Deep. Speaking of the commissioner, so one Bernard is playing the commissioner in this movie. Jeffrey Wright from Westworld. So what do you think about that casting? Because I thought that was really interesting.
I think it's awesome. I love the actor, so I'm totally down for him to be Commissioner Gordon.
Yeah,
it is. I'm always one of these people that's kind of apprehensive about just like really changing a character too much. And here we go, bigot alert. But I think changing the color of a character's is kind of qualifies that. And that I'm not saying like again because I'm really excited to see him play Commissioner Gordon because he's a really great actor. But at the same time, it kind of not emergent, but it kills the I don't know what the word to use is, but it doesn't give you this quality feeling of the character anymore. You know, it's like when it's the effect you get when Superman dons the black suit. You know, it's almost like a different character.
Mm-hmm.
You recognize Superman as a different character when he's in the black suit.
Yeah,
and I feel like that's kind of like when you race swap or gender swap or something like that. It kind of does that. You're just like, all right, well, you're telling me this is the same person, but come on, guys. We're. I know this is a fantasy, this is a made up story, but that's clearly not the same person.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of gender swaps or race swaps. Any swaps. I think when you make a character, it becomes monolithic, and
for sure, it is a monolithic thing.
Yeah, it's like, okay, we have Blade. Let's look at Blade. Wesley Snipes.
Think about a white Blade. Gross.
If you were to come at me and be
gross,
like, we're rebooting Blade, I'm like, oh, sweet. Who's going to play the new Blade? Is it going to be like Jamie Foxx? Is it going to be Idris Elba? And they come at me like, no, Tom Hanks.
Sean White.
I would punch that motherfucker. I don't even care if he's just the messenger. I would punch him in the face for saying Tom Hanks is playing Blade. And it's not a race thing. Like, it goes both ways. I don't like it. A character is a character.
Well, dude, and it could be someone cool. Let's be real here. It could be fucking Colin Farrell or anybody you think. What's his name? Played Wolverine. I'm lost of word name right now, but you know what I'm talking about.
Hugh Jackman?
Yeah, it could be Hugh Jackman playing Blade, and I'd still revolt. No, I'd just be like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's not right, and I don't like it going both directions. It's not one way or the other. It's like, hey, you create a character, it becomes monolithic, it's that character. How about instead of trying to appease a bunch of fucking weirdos, why don't you just make a new character with a new race?
Yeah.
Have some intellectual honesty.
This is an age-old argument that's being currently revitalized in the current day.
It's funny, too, because a lot of people are like, oh, you have to separate the politics from the actor. That's really hard to do in the year 2020, where every single actor is declaring their politics from a rooftop called Twitter.
I don't think Jeffrey Wright is, though, is he?
He is.
Oh, damn. That sucks.
He is.
I don't follow him.
Dude, like 90% of Hollywood is hardcore SJW. God, so it's like, you don't really have to like really pick anyone out. You can almost just say everyone is except for these few people that aren't. He is a part of that, and it's fine. And we all know everyone's politics now in Hollywood, which ruins a lot of performances. Back in the day when you saw Dirty Harry gun some people down in the Old West, played by Clint Eastwood, you had no fucking idea who Clint Eastwood voted for. You didn't know, and that's a good thing. You don't want to know this shit. It pulls you out. It breaks the fourth wall, and not in a good way. You do not want to know your actors too well, and we know actors way too well now, in my opinion.
For sure. Definitely. That's what happens. That's why things like Raylo exist.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That toxic bullshit.
Yeah.
The Batmobile. What did you think? And it's very short, but they show you the back end of the Batmobile charging up. Did that not look like an F-Zero car?
Dude, I've seen a lot of back ends in my day. You know what I'm saying? Hey-o. But this one got me swelling up pretty quick. Won't lie.
Oh, dude. When I paused it and rewinded that part a few times. I was just looking at that like, oh, dude. That is the Batmobile. There are a lot of little breadcrumbs in this trailer that really give you a hint that they're doing this movie right. And look no further than
Batmobile is definitely one.
Yeah, the Batmobile is one of those crumbs. You look at that and you're just like, oh.
The other part that I think you nailed it. One. The other, number two, is that scene where they do not break away from Robert Pattinson beating those thugs up, or one of those thugs up, I should say, and he delivers the line, "I'm Batman," or no, I'm Vengeance, or whatever. Is it I'm Vengeance or Justice? I forget. He does one of those iconic lines, and it just the fact that he delivers the punch and beats that dude down all in one take.
Yep.
If that's what the movie's about,
yep,
I'm psyched. I am totally stoked.
That's a great point. That little brawl scene was one take, and you do not see that in comic book movies almost ever. One take fight scene. You never see that. And in this trailer, we have one.
Well, it's really hard for Batman iconically, just because that suit. The suit for an actor to do like really convincing karate or fucking martial arts, it's hard to pull off. If you were really to show someone with no cuts trying to fight in that bat suit, it probably looked terrible and clowny. And they kind of relied on cuts, this whole time. So it's just really interesting. I don't know if they've made the suit more agile or if they got some really good angles they're utilizing, if you will. But that was fucking killer.
Yeah. I totally agree. That was killer, and one of the few parts of that trailer that really stood out.
Definitely.
One last thing I want to talk about before we move on. What do you think about the possibility of this movie sort of bringing Batman back to like the noir style of Batman? So like we're talking more of the detective elements, the crime solving, like the gadgets that allows him to solve crimes a little bit easier. One gadget we did see in the trailer was the grapple hook. So we know for sure he has that. Mm-hmm. But I'm more thinking of like the more nerdy gadgets. Do you think that they could possibly take this into that sort of noir detective version of Batman?
For sure. I think it's exactly what they're going to do because Robert Pattinson, I mean, he's shredded, but he's not big. And I don't think they would have built Robert Pattinson in the shape he's in right now or the build he's in right now if they wanted to do a more action-y Batman. I think the reason why they got Robert Pattinson is because of exactly what you just said. I think they're going to he's more of a young, only in his sophomore year of being Batman. He's kind of learned from his first year mistakes of getting into the wrong fights and fucking being injured for months on end, So now he's kind of, dipping out of fights a little bit more carefully, hiding a little bit more, doing more detective work before jumping into shit. I definitely see that coming from this movie and feel it. You know what I'm saying?
Speaking of feeling it, Broadcaster Nickels, do you give the Batman a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or the dreaded side thumb?
I'm glad you asked. I recently had the new Turbo Thumb 5000 installed on both hands, so I give it 10,000 thumbs up.
That is a deal that you can't beat at Costco.
What's your membership? I'm Executive Black, bitch.
Yeah, and I'm going to give this an executive thumbs up. This is definitely a very hopeful trailer. I've been very up on DC movies lately in general, and this trailer gives me no warning signs of any, repute. Like, there's nothing I saw in this trailer where I was like, uh-oh. So I'm going to give this a pretty enthusiastic thumbs up and say this is looking real good.
It's looking real good.
And speaking of things that may or may not be real, Broadcaster Nickels, are you ready to get to our review of Westworld Season 3?
It's actually Eastworld, you bigot.
Listen, I'm a bi-coastal two-spirit penguin.
It's about to be one spirit. You're about to lose one in the Great War.
What's that? You want more Crack Cellar? This is good. Join your lords on Twitter at The Crack Cellar and Facebook.com/The Crack Cellar.
Hey, you over there. Are you a straight-up Chad or a strong woman? Well, you can find us on Apple Podcasts and your favorite podcasting app. Or, if you're a straight-up beta cuck, find us on YouTube with the rest of the Cloud Chasers. And we're back with our review of Jonathan Nolan's Westworld, Season 3. And the creators of this television series describe it as the following. Dolores is now out in the real world, carrying the 5 processing cores she stole from the park's mainframe. Meanwhile, Maeve finds herself stuck in a World War II park where she reunites with Lee and Hector. William also managed to escape Westworld, but has to deal with the guilt of murdering his own daughter. As the season progresses, Dolores befriends Caleb, a young man who ends up helping her in fighting for the freedom of all the hosts. Broadcaster Nickels, I don't know about you, but this entire goddamn season, all I could do is be like, oh, look, it's Jesse Pinkman from Breaking Bad.
I think that's why they broke it up, like, into groups of people for, like, the bulk of the episodes.
Yeah.
They're like, this episode has Jesse in it, and then this episode doesn't. It's like a spotlight type thing.
Yeah, early on it was weird. Like, the first episode was all Jesse Pinkman, and then the second episode, zero. They just totally pivot away. You are right. They definitely seem to section it off early on, especially.
Yeah. I think they identified it.
Yeah.
Exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, he was very distracting. Like, I feel bad for actors that are typecasted a little bit. Like, not really feel bad for them because, hey, you're a Hollywood actor. You're fucking rich. I'm not going to feel bad for you. But in a small way, I do, because he had one show that was great. That's considered one of the best shows of all time in Breaking Bad. And every single person who saw Breaking Bad from now on is never going to see anything else other than Jesse Pinkman. But I'm going to give you a retort on that. And I don't think that Mr. Aaron Paul does what I'm about to say this other guy does. But you know the kid from the Hunger Games? You've seen the Hunger Games, right?
I think I saw the first one.
Well, that's what I'm talking about, the first one. So you have Jennifer Lawrence as the girl, right? Remember her sidekick, the kid, the boy?
Oh, the soy boy, the baker.
Yes.
Yeah.
That guy. The first thing I ever saw him in was the Hunger Games. He was in every single Hunger Games movie. He was the Hunger Games guy to me. A show came out recently called Future Man, which this guy was in. And when I first started watching, I'm like, this is going to suck. He's just going to look like the kid from Hunger Games to me. It's just going to be the Hunger Games kid, and I'm never going to be able to see him as anything else. By the time I finished that show, Future Man, I literally identified him as the Future Man kid, and I totally forgot about him in Hunger Games. He did it. He broke
Welcome to
through
the human condition, Two-Spirit Penguin.
Yeah, he broke through the conditioning, and I think Aaron Paul could have done the same thing, but he does not. Do you agree with that?
Dude, you don't have to you don't have to bait me into talking shit about Aaron Paul, bro. All right. I'll not proudly say, but I will admit to saying that I've never seen Breaking Bad. I'm not in a rush to seeing Breaking Bad.
Man.
I've seen a little bit of Last Call Saul, which I'm told is loosely connected, but not crazy connected. I've only seen a little bit of it. And so it's like when I see Aaron Paul, I just see a shitty actor. I don't see this like, oh, well, we had this one great thing called Breaking Bad. I promise you, it was really good. I'm like, well, that's cool, but I have never seen that, and I can just see that he's a terrible actor. So, like, that's not really a good point.
Yeah, no, he wasn't good in this. He was not good in Westworld, and I tried to keep an open mind. He just wasn't good in this show. And it's sad because, well, I think he's going to be in the show moving forward, but I won't elaborate too much on that. But let's just say that I don't think he'll be dropping for season 4. Moving on, though, lots of dropped characters from seasons 1 and seasons 2. Did you notice that, Broadcaster Nickels?
Absolutely.
Oh,
some of them
my
came
God.
back at the last minute, which we'll save for the spoiler section. But I definitely, it's crazy just to think about all the characters that just straight were gone. Never came back.
Yeah. It's a weird season. It's nothing like season 1 and 2. So like season 1 is so traditional. It's like very opaque and very binary. It is what it is. Season 2 kind of took it into like, oh, how deep does the rabbit hole go? But still in the context of Westworld. Like it still felt like Westworld. It was the same setting. Everything was still the same. It just went really deep. Season 3 throws everything out the window and sort of becomes its own thing. It's almost like a different show.
Yeah, well, most definitely. I think if I were to put the concept of season 3 in a nutshell, it's shattering the illusion of Westworld season 1 and 2, like that theme park. Like but shattering it and realizing you're in another illusion, but it's the reality. It's like supposed to be like this weird mirror contrast where it's like, yeah, well, you may be in the real world, but it's just as bad, you know?
Yeah. And we'll go into more detail on why exactly that is in the spoiler section, but the general sentiment is definitely correct. Like, they definitely try and make it like, oh yeah, we're out of Westworld now, but it's sort of still Westworld in a weird esoteric way that we're going to try and push. Which, I wasn't a huge fan of that specific story. In fact, in season 3, I'm going to say the writing and the story overall, not even close to as good as it was in previous seasons, especially season 2, which for my money, and I know a lot of people talk shit about season 2. For my money, season 2 is some of the deepest sci-fi writing we have seen in modern day sci-fi.
For sure. No doubt about it. Season 1 and the way season 1 and 2 connect is crazy good. Yeah. You don't really sci-fi hasn't really gotten better, to be honest, in this new way. Like when's the last time we seen when did Expanse come out?
The first or the last season?
No, the books. Because I can't really say the shows are like doing anything groundbreaking because the books did it, but I would say the story of The Expanse is probably one of the greater pieces of sci-fi I've seen in the last decade.
Oh, for modern, modern sci-fi literature, you're absolutely
and I
correct.
would say Westworld season 1 and 2 come very fucking close. There, it's definitely it's up there. If someone was to scratch my head and be like, come up with some of the best sci-fi you've seen in a while, Westworld season 1 and 2 would definitely be up there.
Yeah. Going into season 3, we'll just tell you right now, get ready for some turbulence because this is not what you have been seeing and it's not what you expect. I mean, I don't think this is much of a spoiler because it's in the synopsis of the show. It's in all the trailers. Season 3 mostly takes place in the real world. It's very little of it takes place in Westworld. I think only like one episode, right? Maybe 2. Not even.
Well,
like
one episode in particular actually shows them, which I thought was actually kind of cool. Like, actually shows in a way where Westworld is on a map.
I like that. Yeah, I did like that part.
That answers a lot of questions.
And it's not where you think it is either.
Yeah,
we won't say where it's at, but it's not where you think it is.
Yeah, so it's like if that's what you're recalling, there is that. But there are other episodes where there's scenes where someone's at that Westworld. It's clearly like it's not that big of a scene or deal.
Yeah. For the most part, season 3 is in the real world, and there's great direction and production values in this show. It continues in season 3. But the writing just wasn't up to snuff in the season, in my opinion. I just think that the characters were very shallow. Basically, you reduce a cast from Westworld season 1 and 2 of like what? There were like 20 characters that were pretty well fleshed out. And you reduce that to like 4. Like, it's way less in season 3.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe I'm not going to argue with the general direction of the story. That might be, honestly, even if fucking Jonathan Nolan himself was handwriting all these episodes.
He wrote a few of them. He wrote quite a few.
I think he co-wrote almost all of them. But
there's a few he didn't touch, but all the good ones. Like, if you look through it and you look at the good episodes you liked, he wrote all of them.
Yeah, but I imagine if he solo wrote all of them, you'd still see the same direction of season 3 storyline. But nonetheless, I feel there are some particular parts in the season just that super stand out to me as not being Westworld at all. Like, it actually broke the immersion of feeling like you were watching a Westworld episode.
Oh yeah,
and that's something I never thought you'd feel in a Westworld season. But season 3 definitely did a few times.
And I can't wait to discuss one of the many factors to that, which is very local to us specifically.
Yes.
We'll get into that later.
Yes.
What do you think about Ed Harris in season 3? Without going into too much details, to me, I was surprised how heavily he was featured. William. So Ed Harris plays William. And, at the end of season 2, we're going to talk season 2 spoilers. So if you have not seen season 2, I don't know why you're listening to this, but definitely stop now. Ed Harris is the man in black, and he murders his daughter at the end of season 2 because he thinks she's a host, which is one of the best parts of season 2. That was one of the episodes when I was watching it, I was like, fuck, that's some heavy shit. Ed Harris, his entire arc in this season 3 is very unexpected and very interesting and very heavily featured. But it's not well written. I don't think he's good in it. The best part with Ed Harris, in my opinion, is the post-credit scene at the very end of season 3 without telling you what it is. I think that's his best part in the entire show, and it's not even a real scene in the show. It's a post-credit scene at the end of the final episode. What do you think? What do you think about Ed Harris in this? Did you like his arc? Generally speaking, did you think he was well written?
In season 3 in particular?
Yes, season 3.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
No. Season 3 was supposed to be closure, right?
Yes.
And it just didn't feel like, to me, season 3 was already a stretch. When I watched the first season, the second season, I'm just like, all right, this needs to end. Even though it was sweet, the fact that they're saying there's a third season, I'm really just like, you guys got to wrap this up, or it's going to taint everything. And now that I feel like there might be a more than season 3, it really hurts me. But nonetheless, closure was the theme of season 3.
And you didn't get it.
And you don't get it. Even though there's like a lot of time spent trying to tell you Ed Harris's character is getting closure.
Mm-hmm.
But there's not really any of it. It just seemed like they were trying to fill time up because they couldn't get other actors to show up for the season. Or they couldn't get, like, there were certain aspects of the story that they wanted to do, but they just couldn't do for some reason. You know?
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I'm going to get way more into this in the spoiler section. But I have a theory that Ed Harris was meant... They wrote a really good role for Ed Harris for season 4, and they originally thought season 4 was going to be season 3, but at the last second they're like, okay, we're going to do season 3 different, and then we're going to hold off on this Man in Black storyline and push it to season 4, which is basically confirmed by the post-credit scene at the end of season 3.
Yeah.
But basically, I think that they just wanted to keep Ed Harris on the show so that they could get to season 4 and give him a good arc. And they just gave him a filler arc in season 3. That is my theory. What do you think about that?
I think you're half right. I think it happened exactly like that, but instead of being a filler arc, I think it was them begging Ed Harris to be in this season to make up for other people not being there. Because there's, like we said earlier, there is a glaring omission of, I don't know, 5, 6 plus characters just gone.
Yeah, and
Just
few of them.
They don't even show up in past scenes, which makes you think the actors were just not available.
Yeah, and there's a few of these characters in specific where you're like, you fully expected them to be main characters of season 3 after season 2. And we'll talk more about specifically who that is, but there's some characters where after you finish season 2, you're like, okay, this guy 100% is going to be in season 3. And then you get to season 3, never to be seen, just vanished like a ghost. And you're like, what? It's crazy. But overall, I just feel like it felt more generic compared to the past seasons.
I don't know. Generic might not be
generic to sci-fi. Let's put it that way. Generic to sci-fi.
I don't know. It's hard for me because first of all, I think the chick that plays Dolores is fucking hot as hell, and also should be the new La Femme Nikita. She every time I see her in the season, God. I'm just like, dude. I was like, you're like La Femme Nikita. Like, why you should be billed as La Femme Nikita? Like, this is what you're doing right now. This is hot. I'm
Broadcaster Nickels. That is the call of the episode. Congratulations, Evan Rachel Wood as La Femme Nikita is the call of the episode. Moving on.
Anyways, I just. There was very few. I forget actually what I was talking about. I got lost in talking how hot she was. But the one thing I do like, the one thing I did like about this season is that the music was really good. I really loved the music.
Are you talking about the atmospheric music or like
the atmospheric music, not the traditional or the remixes of the traditional music? I'm talking about just the atmosphere music. That was super good.
Yeah. I agree with you on that one. There are some, some songs that are taken that are put into the show kind of ham-fisted in, where specifically at the end and the beginning, where you're just like, oh God, okay, you do the wanking motion at it. You're just like, okay,
don't say wanking motion. That's forbidden on this podcast.
You heard it and you understood what I meant immediately. That is called effective communication.
Asterisk, drink sip of whiskey.
But in addition to the season being more generic, I also just felt like it was more campy and less serious compared to the first two seasons. Like, in the first season, there was sort of like this little feigned innocence early on, and it just became like this sinister undertone towards the end, in which eventually we get to where Dolores murks Anthony Hopkins at the end, which is like the big twist of the season one, I guess you should say, where we're not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy. That was very serious season, very straight-laced, very tight-knit season. Not a lot of surprises, but it was a very good season and very serious. The second season, a little bit more loosey-goosey, a little bit more in the trenches of sci-fi, the type of sci-fi storylines that you tell that a lot of people get upset about and they don't understand. They're like, oh, this is a gobbledygook. I don't understand anything, because it takes a lot of mental sort of willpower to follow it. You can't just like half watch it and understand what's going on. Season 3 totally abandons the seriousness, which is odd because the actual storyline wants you to think it's super serious, right? Like when you're watching season 3, they really want you to think like everything's at stake. This is it. Like this is so serious. But when you're watching it, you can't help but think this is way less serious than seasons 1 and season 2. This feels like, band camp.
Right. Well, what does season 3? I mean, in order for the concept and the storyline of season 3 to be a good storyline, it has to feel like these characters, these hosts, want to be in this world, right? Mm-hmm. Like, there's a few key aspects you have to write into the characters to make the viewer believe that it's even worth these superior human beings, essentially, to even want to fuck with the real world. Especially after they found out there's a digital afterlife thing that they can go to, essentially, and escape humanity, right?
Yeah.
Which I'm sure we'll figure out more what that more is if there's more seasons. But it's just when I approached season 3, that was what was in the back of my mind the whole time. I'm just like, wait a minute, why are they even fucking with the real world? Mm-hmm. Like this just seems not Westworld to me. Westworld is a simulation, always second guessing reality. Like, is this a real human? Is that a host? Right now, are they in like real world, or is this a simulation? Mm-hmm. There was a little bit of it, but not a lot of it.
Yeah.
And it killed it for me.
Yeah, I agree. And the first thing I want to talk about in our spoilers section is exactly what you're talking about, is why are they fucking around in this at all? And like what you just said basically is right out the gate what I want to talk about.
Remember when we were talking about Westworld during season 1 or 2 before we did this podcast, and we were just speculating. I think it was during season 1. We were speculating about where Westworld was even at. We were talking about, could it be like in space?
Mm-hmm.
Is it on a different planet? Is it a floating colony? Like, where is it? And then when you get to season 3, it's just like, it's not just a letdown. It's just like, really? That's the best you could fucking do?
Yeah. Yeah. It goes right back to just feeling generic.
Yeah.
Like none of like the high pie in the sky type ideas that you thought when you were watching seasons 1 and 2, none of them come to fruition. It's just like the most boring version of what you could have thought is what is happening. And it's a big letdown. But before we get to our spoiler section, Broadcaster Nickels, to those of us who have not seen Westworld Season 3, and are perhaps on the fence of whether or not they should continue their journey into Westworld, do you recommend Westworld Season 3? Shall they watch it?
Oh, absolutely. If not, just, to continue the series. Hopefully the next season will be better.
Yeah.
But it definitely has to wrap up, like I said.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, it's a great season. They got not the greatest of season. It's a great series.
Yeah.
And to say to not watch season 3 would kind of be an injustice. So
yeah.
Definitely watch it.
The way I would describe it as, for most television series, season 3 of Westworld is very, very good. Yeah. But compared to season 1 and 2 of Westworld, season 3 isn't very good.
Didn't fill the shoes.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where it's like, it doesn't compare well to itself, but it still compares well to other things. And in that way, I would say, you kind of got to watch it. I'm not going to say don't watch season 3. And in fact, I think season 3 is going to lead to a much better season 4. But Broadcaster Nickels, are you ready to get to our spoiler section?
I got to do the ye old, I got to take a shit.
Broadcaster Nickels, I think the season 3 we got is not the original season 3 that was planned.
Absolutely not. That was the first feeling I got. After about 4 episodes, I was like, this is not the original idea.
So let's just kind of talk about the end of season 2 and where we thought things were going. So personally for me, after all of the hosts went to Robot Valhalla, except for the few that didn't, including Dolores, and we see Dolores basically saying, okay, my job is to go out into the human world and start shit. We realize that Hale is dead and that she's been replaced by a robot. At this point, we see at the very end of season 2, the only part that shows the real world in season 2, and it shows Dolores there, and she's reviving these robots that she brought from Westworld, right?
Yeah.
And
5 hosts, including Bernard.
Right, and that's sort of the end. So to me, when I was envisioning season 3, I thought, okay, Dolores wants to exterminate humanity, and she's brought her 5 horsemen out with her to help her do it. And what we're going to see in season 3 is these 5 hosts, Dolores, her team, basically plot and enact the extermination of humankind in the real world. That is what I expected. We did not get that at all. For multiple reasons. Not only did Dolores end up being like this weird kind of goody two-shoes, I want to help humankind out of nowhere. Not only that, but all of the 5 ended up being Dolores clones, just put in the bodies of the hosts that we saw in seasons 1 and 2. What do you think about that development? Because that threw me for a fucking loop when we found out about that. It totally broke my entire thought process of what season 3 was when we figured that out.
Most definitely. And I think it was meant to be that as well. But I don't know. It's hard to say it's a shitty idea because it fooled me.
Oh, it definitely fooled
but,
me. Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm just like, why?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could have had so much more, I don't know, character growth, which leads me to my next point, that they couldn't get a bunch of character or actors to come back, which means they couldn't actually have any progression with said characters that were missing.
Mm-hmm.
So instead, they opted for clones of Dolores.
Yeah. And if I had to ask you right now, who is the most glaring omission of hosts that you expected to see in season 3 that just are not present whatsoever in season 3? Who is at the top of your mind?
Teddy.
Are you kidding me? How in the fuck did season 3 happen and just Teddy? There isn't a fucking mention of Teddy. Not only he's not in it,
that's the weird part.
He isn't fucking mentioned.
Yeah, it was almost. It's oddly spiteful, you know, because there was like this real romantic ending with Dolores and Teddy, and season 3 kind of was all about new beginnings, if you will, with a lot of these hosts, and the fact that she didn't choose Teddy, or Teddy didn't come up, or even the guy who played Teddy as an actor didn't reprise himself in like past quote unquote scenes, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very glaring omission.
It was. And man, there are a few glaring omissions in this season, but Teddy is definitely at the top of the list. I kept waiting for Teddy to show up. Like, I remember just watching the first half of season 3 being like, is this the episode Teddy shows up? I know he's coming. And eventually you get to the point where it reveals that all of the 5 are just fucking Dolores clones. And you're like, oh, what? Wait, what?
I honestly was, the guy I was waiting for to show up was Anthony Hopkins' character. Ford was his name. Was it Ford?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. I was like, honestly, I was just like, man, this is all just too much. Season 3 is all just too much. Like them going to Earth spoiler alert, Westworld's on Earth. Anyways, moving on. I just thought that there was going to be this big aha moment from Ford again, where it's just like, this is just another story I made. Because you guys always want, you always talk. They even have the line from Ford in season 3 where it's just like talking about how, what role would you play if you could create your own story? Would you be the villain or would you be the good guy? And that just made me think Ford was going to pop up at some point. I was like, okay, now I know why this season seems to be so out of place, because it's upside down castle time, right? But there was no upside down castle.
No, there wasn't.
You got a shit sandwich. That's what you got.
Yeah. So my theory here is that originally season 3 was going to be what we talked about. It was going to be Dolores plotting the end of humanity with her 5 horsemen and just extincting these bitches, like extincting humanity. Like, that's what I expected. I thought it was going to be robots versus humans, a la Terminator. That's what I thought I was going to get. And what I think happened is that originally that was the plan with season 3, but some person in the executive office was like, well, people are kind of depressed right now and they kind of want like hope, like they want hope and change. And, people kind of, they're looking for an upswing. And why don't we make it a positive one? Why don't we make Dolores, trying to help humanity, fight off oppressors?
A riot sympathizer.
Yeah.
That line where she's just like, where they go outside and they just see the chaos and she's just like, sometimes change can be violent. I was just like, when was this filmed? Was this a reshoot? I
Yeah.
swear, some of this is too relevant.
Oh,
too relevant.
Dude, I felt the exact same way on some of those scenes. I was like, dude, this was either reshot or these fuckers were prescient as fuck. It
For sure.
Prophets with
Dude,
some of the shit they said.
Nostradamus type shit. Some of the posters on the walls with the fist. Dude, there are literally some posters in the season, or in the episodes that have the future and whatnot, or not the future, the present time, the reality planet. It's not a black fist, but it's the exact same fist, like the same artist, same fist, but it's not black, it's blue. And it says like something people are citizens. We are citizens or whatever. It's crazy.
It is crazy. And we get this season where it feels very contrived. It feels very like this wasn't the original plan, but this is what we're going to have now because this is what the people at the top of the corporate office thought that we needed to do, and they pay our checks, so that's what we're doing. That's how it felt. And at the very end of the season, so first of all, Broadcaster Nickels, did you know there was a post-credit sequence? Did you see it the first time you watched?
Yeah. I mean, I just naturally look for it.
Most people would only naturally look for those in movies because post-credit sequences in television series are super rare.
Hey. Rare. It's not TV, it's HBO. Okay.
I knew you were going to say that, Broadcaster Nickels, because you are a fucking professional, and I knew that you would say that. And I will acquiesce. You're right. It is not television. It is HBO. And for that reason, they do have a post-credit sequence. And oh my God, does this post-credit sequence change everything? So you get this ho-hum ending in season 3, where it's basically Aaron Paul and Maeve watching Antifa burn down future LA. And Maeve's all like, hey, Jesse Pinkman, this is a new world and you get to choose whoever the fuck you want to be. And then it just like slowly fades out with them watching the city burn. And that's the end. And it goes to credits. That's the end of the season. If you were to finish it there, you'd be like, what the fuck? That's the end? Oh no. You go past the credits, and what do you see? You see William walking into Abu Dhabi headquarters of robots or something. He's walking into this company.
Abu Dhabi.
And he goes up to like the receptionist. He's like, where are the fucking robots? And he fucking grabs her. I feel like he grabbed her neck. Maybe he didn't actually grab her neck, but it was very aggressive. Like he just walks up to this receptionist. He's like, I know these fucking robot filth better than you know my ball sack. Where are they? And, she hits the fucking, the panic button, and he sees it, and he immediately just like fucking, I don't know, like he turns around, there's a security guard, he blows him up in the head and, one shots him, and then turns around and is like, that's enough trouble for one day, ain't it, ma'am? And he just walks down the stairs. Okay, this is like some of the best acting we got out of him in the entire goddamn show, and it was in the fucking post-credit sequence. And we're not even done yet.
Originally shot scene.
Yeah, we're not even done yet either. So he walks down the stairs and he goes into the robot factory. And there he finds one of the Dolores clones who's in the Hale robot, who is recreating Westworld, basically. She's recreating all the robots. She has a huge assembly line. And he catches her, and she kind of confronts him, like, oh, I've been expecting you. Ha ha ha, I knew you were coming. Ha ha ha, William. And William's like, fuck you, bitch, I'm your executioner. And she's like, you're right. You are going to save the world. And out walks from the shadows Robot Ed Harris, the man in black. And here we have a fight between the real Ed Harris, William, and the fake Ed Harris, the man in black. And they talk shit to each other. Again, this is some of the best acting in all of season 3. And it's in this one goddamn post-credit scene. It kills me. What ends up happening is that the man in black, the fake robot Ed Harris, kills William. He fucking slits his goddamn throat. He is a soldier under Dolores, under evil Dolores, aka
evil
Hale. And we'll get into more why she is evil Dolores, but what my point is, by going to this point of the end of the series so quickly, is to say, I think that the end of season 3 actually sets up what the original season 3 was going to be. Evil Dolores creating a robot army to exterminate humanity.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. It was like, I don't want to put the tinfoil hat on too much, but it really feels and looks like they were like you said earlier, hey, we got season 3, but let's push that back a little bit and let's cut up a surgical cut and just insert this season, social justice themed. Like, it wasn't SJW, but it's like just enough. You notice how one of the most interesting characters that was present in season 3 was a side character with the toxic white man drinker, and the two main actors in the season were the female white chick and black chick. Even though in the other 2 seasons, everyone was a good character. Like, when anyone showed up on the screen, you were interested in where their character was going. Bernard was total side character in season 3. Like, everything you saw him in was good, but he had little to any screen time compared to the other 2 actors.
Yeah. Basically, the A plot was Dolores.
Yeah.
The B plot was Bernard, and the C plot was William. And the C plot and the B plot were both completely worthless. They had really no impact on the storyline at large.
Not until the very end, at least.
Yeah, but even then, it's like...
It was just a shitty story to get to it.
It was contrived, yeah.
Because, like, the whole point of Bernard's story in season 3 is, oh, Dolores has a purpose for me, she knows everything, type of thing. And then eventually you find out it's like, oh, she realized I was the best of her, and I'm actually going to find this afterlife everyone went to and figure out what it really is, you know. It's just, it's so weird. It's like, you should have led with that. Like, that should have been like your...
And they would have if season 3 was originally what it was supposed to be. I think that's what I'm kind of getting at, is the way that... Because, okay, so after William gets his throat slit by the Man in Black, a.k.a. Robot William, it pans to Bernard, right where he left off putting the fucking Valhalla headset on. And he's all, like, rusted and covered in dirt and whatever, and he wakes up. I think that was originally supposed to be the beginning of season 3. That whole sequence of the post-credits scene, I think that was the original idea of what was going to start season 3. Instead of end season 3.
Man, that would be quite the fucking cut job, if you will. Yeah. If that's the case.
Yeah, but either way, the C plot with William was totally pointless. Like, the only good part about it was the scene in the mental institution when he was arguing with all the different versions of himself. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
That was really cool. Even if it didn't really make a lot of sense, it was just cool to watch.
Most definitely.
Listening to Ed Harris argue with himself is... Yeah, it's kind of like akin to watching Robin Williams in Miss Doubtfire. It's sort of the same effect.
I can relate, I guess.
But the B plot with Bernard was pretty silly. Like, it was just like, it starts off with him like, I'm going to stop Dolores. And then it's just like him wandering aimlessly. And then eventually he's like, I am Dolores. I am helping Dolores. It's just like, okay, like what really was the point of this whole thing other than to just have Jeffrey Wright on the credits list? You just want to keep him as an actor. You just want to keep Ed Harris as an actor till you can get to season 4. It's a little weird.
It did. It seemed like a standoff to get to season 4 almost.
For sure. Yeah, the writers just did not know what to do with William. They didn't. Like, they knew, like, okay, we have big plans for William in season 4, but in season 3, we're kind of just trying to fill time here. So, like, what are we going to do? I know. let's put him in a room with a bunch of versions of himself and have him argue, then murder them. Like, it's really cool and I loved it, but it's like pointless as fuck. It did not really belong in the series.
You could always take some genre, bro, and hang out with Marshawn Lynchy dog. You randomly, you were talking about people getting typecasted in the non-spoiler part of the podcast, and I really just wanted to yell Marshawn Lynch because I kind of felt bad for the guy. I imagine like being invited or like getting a role on a sci-fi show or something like that. That to me, if I was a football player, you're already successful. I'm not trying to argue that he like his life or anything. I'm just saying it's like if you're gonna give the dog an acting bone, let him fucking act, right? It's like yeah, we got Marshawn Lynch on a sci-fi show. Great. Hey, wouldn't it be cool if his last scene was him pushing over some barricades like no human ever would, and him rushing the police like it's a football game? Like, I was like, guys, come on, that is so cringy.
It was pandering.
Yeah.
And it's sad too because we have examples in the past. Like, look at O.J. Simpson. Too soon? I don't think so. Look at O.J. Simpson. He was a legitimate,
more like too late, bro. That guy's on the Twitter sphere, bro.
O.J. Simpson is a must follow on Twitter. But moving along, O.J. Simpson parlayed from one of the best football running backs of all time into a comedic acting role in Hollywood where he was legitimately funny in movies.
I think you're missing a career spot, but go on.
Listen, we're talking about the 80s right now. The 90s, neither here nor there. We're talking
90s
about
weren't good to OJ.
We're talking about the 80s right now, all right? We're talking about the 80s. And he was really fucking good in these limited guest spots he had in these comedy movies in the 80s. And they didn't have him tackling people like a football player. They actually had him acting and being funny. You know it's possible, but they had no faith in Marshawn Lynch. So they're just like, just talk like in your yo dog voice to people, and then eventually we're gonna have you tackle some people at the end, and that's your role. What a joke.
Yeah, it's sad too because when I first saw Marshawn Lynch and the I forget the female's name, she's in something else, man. Anyways, they seem like interesting characters. Especially after they became reoccurring, I was like, oh man, I hope they actually go into depth of who these people are. Maybe they'll connect to some other people in some crazy way, but sadly not.
Yeah, sadly very not. And
I think sadly very not is the exact terminology we'll use to cap this season's review. Goodbye. Good night.
No, I have a little bit more to say about Aaron Paul. His storyline in season 3 felt paper thin, and this whole like backstory mystery of his, where it starts out with like him being in like a PTSD military guy, where his one of his fellow soldiers was killed in the active duty with him, and back in the desert or whatever, and they're very vague about it. This whole thing like sort of develops over time into him.
No payoff.
No, there's no payoff whatsoever. And eventually they're like, oh no, you killed him in a, bad deal gone bad and blah, blah, blah. And you're just like, okay, what? Like, what? Why? You're expected to believe that Aaron Paul has no idea, his character has no idea that he murdered his own friend because he was brainwashed by the fucking Twitter sphere robot.
Oh yeah, man. It's fucking stupid, dude.
And we get to the Twitter sphere robot, and the Twitter sphere robot's like, oh no, let me tell you what I've been hiding from you this whole time for reasons, quote unquote. You killed your friend. Ha 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 ha.
It was so anticlimactic and lackluster. I almost had like the reverse spit your food out moment where when it happened, I just was so saddened for the character like was not even real. I'm just like, I'm sorry you were written so poorly.
Yeah.
What a waste of a buildup, you know?
It was a huge waste.
And at the very end, when Sirach was like, well, that's why she picked you. You're just a violent man. That's your role. And I was just like, really? Like, come on. And now you get to pick your new life.
Yeah, that whole... And the thing that sucks about it, too, is that Aaron Paul's acting throughout this entire thing was so bad. He was not believable in any scenes outside of the very first episode. The very first episode, he was, like, pseudo-believable. As the show progressed, as you got to episode 2, he wasn't in episode 2, but, episode 3, episode 4, as you got through, his acting got worse and worse and worse and harder to believe. And when you finally get the reveal about oh, you actually killed your friend, not the bad guys, you're just rolling your fucking eyes at that point.
Yeah. If there's a scale right now, and maybe this is getting to the favorite and least episode, but if there was a scale on grading all episodes, I'd say episode 1 through 4 was the green zone. And then episode 5 through 6 was the yellow zone. And then I'm kind of in my head if episode 7 and 8 are together and just completely in the red zone, or if episode 7 itself is a shade of red and then 8 is dark red.
Yeah.
That's pretty much how it goes.
It was bad. And I would kind of say that I think it's 7 and 8 that are both pretty deep red. I don't think that 7 and... I think 7 and...
7 still had a little hope, though, where I was like, oh, Anthony Hopkins could still show up.
At the beginning, right?
Yeah,
at the beginning. Yeah. That hope... Spoiler, that hope never came. And...
fact check, true.
And speaking of fact check, true... As bad as Marshawn Lynch's weird cameo role was in this television show, his acting was actually better than Aaron Paul's.
Fuck yeah, dude. It was
and
great.
That made me sad. That just made me sad.
Those two, like I said earlier, those two had chemistry. I liked their acting. They had a really... they came off as actual interesting characters.
Yeah. It's funny, too, because I was like, man, you should have saved this for The Matrix 4. You should have brought Marshawn Lynch and this bald black woman onto The Matrix 4. Would have fit perfectly.
Well, they're both black, so there's a chance they could show up. They have a high chance. And if they're thinking if they haven't thought about it and you're listening, Marshawn, definitely get your agent to tell you should be in The Matrix. I will buy the ticket just to see you.
You ever heard of Beast Mode? How about Neo mode?
Don't go beast mode on fucking inanimate barriers and objects, all right? You need to go beast mode as the next chosen one, bruh. All right?
Broadcaster Nickels, the final 3 episodes of this show, season 3 of Westworld, felt very disjointed. What say you?
Absolutely. 100%, 110% agree with that notion. It's the first feeling you get from this season. If someone were to ask me, if I was in a think tank, right? If I was getting paid to be asked what I thought about this season of Westworld, and the first question they asked me, what's the first feeling you get when watching episode 1 of Westworld, season 3? I'd say not connected, disconnected. Is this the same story? Are you guys doing a spinoff?
Man, the ending was just bad. You knew it was coming because the story wasn't good in the first place, so you weren't really expecting.
That's how you know it's that shallow, because you know it's coming. Mm-hmm. Like the whole season, about episode 6, you know where it's going. I'd say you can probably maybe put it together if you're a keen detective in the earlier episodes, but still,
yeah. So the villain, quote unquote, Sarek, he just ends up being a puppet of the Twitter sphere, right? So like the overall villain is actually just a circling sphere that tells people what to think and what to do, and he's controlling Sarek. And Sarek, the way they write is like Sarek willingly gave himself to the cube or the sphere or whatever. And this is like one of those moments where you're like, well, you were a shitty villain anyway, but now that you do this, it's like you're even shittier, and it's like, what have I been doing with my life?
Yeah. At that point, when he said he was in his ear, I was like, man, it'd be a lot cooler right now if the Twitter sphere was narrated by O.J. Simpson. Hey, Twitter world. How y'all doing? Just want you to know, this is a simulation.
Also, I didn't kill my wife, but if I did, this is how I would have done it.
Let me show you the simulation in which I kill my wife.
Yeah, so what did you think about the overall end game of the storyline, which was basically a floating god sphere robot, super AI controlling humanity through social media? And yeah, what did you think about that overall when it was finally revealed fully?
I thought it was unexplainably simple, but look aesthetically complex.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I'm a huge fan of an anime called Gantz, and when I saw that sphere, I immediately thought of Gantz. But it became very soon that that's all it was. It was just a blink. It's like an LED ornament light you can buy on Amazon that just has like they even talk about it in the beginning of the series, or like that one chick that gets glassed eventually. But she's just like, well, there was some unusual data flow, so my boss is mad. And you eventually find out that's Sirach. And you figure out he's like the main puppet. He's the main puppet. Like, that's all you find out. He's being led by the sphere. And then at the very end, the way the sphere extracts data from Dolores is like with jumper cables. Cables with tubes. And like there's this blue energy going up into the sphere, but it only makes it halfway. Did you ever notice that in the scene that the blue liquid only goes up halfway when she like has the ascension moment? Yep. And I'm like, oh, she's taking over the sphere. This is gonna make sense now. And then she doesn't do that. And I'm like, all right, still not making sense. So it's overly complicated but crude in some other manners.
Yeah. That whole the jumper cables thing is funny you bring that up, because when I saw that, I'm just like, really, dude? Like,
yeah,
I know you're trying to call them robots and everything, and like, oh, a robot is a car, and you jump a car with jumper cables and blah blah blah, and like the interface. I get that, like electricity to the battery. I get all that, but it's like, dude. You're talking about like complex quantum data coming from like a crazy technological device.
And they were straight alligator clips hooked into her fucking metal skeleton structure.
Yeah, exactly.
They were alligator clips.
You're just like, dude, come on, man. Yeah.
I mean, at least like pull a fucking bus chip out of an old car or something, and stitch it to her fake flesh or some shit. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, what that led us to is a scene where Maeve, I guess, interfaces with the final memory of Dolores as Dolores is being deleted by Sarek. And Dolores just says some generic shit that she's said to Maeve several times within this show. She's said this shit to her before. This is not a new conversation. But this time, it's so prolific that Maeve decides to betray everything she's been doing in the entire season and save Caleb, a.k.a. Jesse Pinkman, from quote-unquote Sarek.
The most pointless scene in the whole season.
Dude, it's so weird. It's so bad. It's bad writing. It makes no sense. And then to top it all off, so Maeve does this. She does her little "I'm samurai woman, and I'm gonna cut everyone in half."
Hear me roar.
And she does that thing, and then like, Then we find out Jesse Pinkman now controls the robot in the sky that's making all the decisions and not Sarek anymore because
Terrible idea.
the jumper cables to fucking Dolores is what gave him the power to control okay. As you can see, no one's impressed with this. This is really bad. This is just bad, lazy writing, and it's not something we've seen a lot in Westworld.
I reserve the right to think this was not Westworld. This was just Dolores's shitty drunk dream, like nightmare or dream. That scene with her and Maeve at the end really made me think that it was like this solace moment at the end of season 3 where it's Dolores just kind of looks at Maeve and kind of looking at the audience in a meta way, and it's just like, it's all right, guys. I don't know what the fuck everyone's doing in this season. I just, I don't have the key. And I honestly, when he said I was looking for the key, I just played along because I'm just looking for a good time, So it's like, I was like, right on, Dolores, you're really hot. So I enjoyed the season. Thank you.
Indeed, yes. Yeah. So at some point, Dolores, what's the kid? All the kids who are in Apple use to airdrop. Dolores airdropped the key to Bernard at some point in the show.
Yeah.
We don't know when, but it happened. Things happen in Westworld.
And then Bernard just realizes he has the key in a shitty hotel while fucking Stubbs is bleeding out in a bathtub, and he's pouring ice into the bathtub, right? He's like, the ice will help you from going necrotic. And it's just like, all right, cool. Well, this is going to set the precedent that you're going to help Stubbs, right? Nah. He's like, I'm gonna put this cool fancy headset on and peace.
Yeah.
He's like, well, what are you doing? He's like, well, I figured out Dolores gave me the key. I was like, well, when did that happen? It's just like, well, it happened, all right? So
it happened when the writers decided it happened. Yeah. The ending to Westworld Season 3, there's no way to put this any less bluntly. It was sloppy. It was a sloppy end to a season that I don't think should have existed. And I think we're about to get the season that should have existed next season. But, that being said, Broadcaster Nickels, what was your favorite episode from Season 3 of Westworld?
2.
Episode 2. So you're talking about the episode where Bernard goes back to Westworld and Maeve wakes up in Nazi Italy and all that?
Yeah, that's like, because that was when it felt like Westworld the most to me.
Interesting. My favorite episode is episode 5. It's called Genre. And there are a few things that happen in this episode. First of all, we got the Sarek backstory, quote unquote, which was really lame, but we did get to see a mushroom cloud over France, and anytime I see that, I'm good. So that's positive.
Demonetized.
Second, this is the episode where they send out the robot eye in the sky data to everyone, and everyone freaks out. And they're like, oh God, I've been being controlled by social media.
Relevant.
Topical. And,
Topical. That should be our first t-shirt.
And the real reason this is my favorite episode is because this is the one episode Aaron Paul did good acting in. So I don't know if you remember this or not, but Aaron Paul takes like this weird Willy Wonka. I don't know if you
remember this or not, but Aaron Paul was a good actor at one point.
He takes this Willy Wonka like LSD drug, and Marshawn Lynch is in this episode too. And this is the best episode Marshawn Lynch was in as well. So we have a confluence of the two worst actors in the show being good at the same time. This is
Say
what we
it with me, children. Confluence. So this drug, the reason I call it Willy Wonka drug is because it has multiple phases. So it like turns your life into a movie of different genres. So in the beginning, he's like in a weird like noir movie.
as like all this, it's like all this like actual stuff happening in or not in Westworld, but in the show Westworld is happening in real time. But in the show, Aaron Paul, aka Caleb, is on this Willy Wonka LSD drug. So like in the show's from his perspective. So you keep seeing like things change. It starts off as this like noir film, and then it changes into like an action film with like the chariots of fire or whatever, like that dun 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 dun, that whole thing. And then eventually you get to like this weird like slow like hypno drama like techno beat thing. We get to the David Bowie sci-fi themed part of the drug. Then eventually at the very end we get to like a weird horror version of the drug. And throughout this episode, the direction of it is amazing, because like throughout each of these phases of the drugs, they change the colors, they change the music, they change the sound effects. Hell, they changed the crop ratio.
It was pretty cool.
Times.
Yeah.
This was a tour de force type episode.
Oh, no doubt. It was a show of skill, most definitely.
But it was also the most pointless episode of the entire season. And the fact that that's my favorite episode of the season kind of tells you how pointless season 3 was in general.
It kind of had like this 15-second scene where Aaron Paul's character was like romantically looking at Dolores's character. There was this old noir music playing, and I kind of got a stiffy. So I mean, like, that was a good 15 seconds.
Oh yeah, dude.
Solid 15 seconds.
For
no
sure.
pun intended.
Yeah. If I was on the Willy Wonka drug and I was sitting next to Dolores, I would have had the exact same reaction. That being said, Broadcaster Nickels, what was your least favorite episode of season 3?
Least favorite episode of season 3. I think, man, probably the last episode. To be honest, because everything, like I said earlier, like it just progressively got worse. So I'd have to say the last episode was like, it was bad.
Yeah, the last episode was really bad.
Yeah, it was just like
it was really long too. So
the conclusion you got sucked, and there was a lot of shit that didn't get conclusion. There was the open ends they left were lackluster, and just I don't know, just really left you wanting.
Yeah, I agree. My least favorite episode, my second pick for least favorite episode would have been episode 8. But my least favorite is your favorite episode, episode 2. It's called The Winter Line. And the reason I don't like this episode is because the whole episode was nearly pointless. It was... Okay, so the main crux of the episode is Bernard going back to Westworld to try and find Maeve. The only good part of this episode that I liked was when he actually found Ashley Stubbs and recommissioned him, and he became his like guardian again.
Yeah.
That whole sequence, I like that part, but every other part of the episode I was not a fan of. It just felt contrived when like they show up to like the room where they keep all of the defective robots in, and they're looking for Maeve, and they find her, but then find that her control node has been taken out, blah, 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 whatever. The brain. They took out the robot brain. It just felt like, oh, hey, we just need to like reuse some sets. So like, oh, remember this set? Let's reuse this set and do this thing here. Like none of it had any point. If you remove episode 2 from the show, it wouldn't really change anything. The only thing it really did was introduce Sarek, quote unquote Sarek the villain, who isn't the villain, who's a fucking puppet of the Twitter sphere.
Well, it did a few things. They introduced Sarek. It put Westworld on the Earth. It
That
also
part's cool too,
revealed Ashley Stubbs as being a host. So yeah.
And by the way, did you really think Westworld was in the South China Sea? Isn't that like the biggest reveal of the entire season 3? Like, what?
Yeah, that was pretty funny. I'm guessing in this future, China's gone. They took all their land.
Maybe we'll find out in season 4. But
I really like the giant cement wall buoy things that were guarding the sea around Westworld. Though it kind of reminded me of Evangelion, like seeing like a containment zone where an angel landed or something.
Totally. Yeah, that whole sequence was cool. I do like that whole sequence where they reveal where Westworld is in the real world. But that being said, Broadcaster Nickels, here on the Crack Cellar, we have a segment called The Hit, the Miss, and the Whiff. What would you declare your hit?
My hit is Dolores' ass. Cut that out.
Dolores was so hot in season 3, though. She was hot in the entire show, but goddamn, dude.
Every time they would make her do the interview and butt naked in the chair, and they would like zoom in on her ass on the back, I'm like, goddamn, that's not fair. But I think the hit would have probably been maybe the Twitter sphere. Twitter sphere is pretty cool.
You enjoy the disembodied robot voice?
No, you know what the hit was? The aesthetic of the future aesthetic. That's what I'll say. The hit, like the app that had like the criminality and all that stuff. Like that was it was cool. It was entertaining. Like I loved how they had like this Grand Theft Auto-esque type app that got people into the criminal life with ease.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
My hit is Luke Hemsworth as Ashley Stubbs. Do you know who Luke Hemsworth is?
He's one of the Hemsworth brothers.
Yeah, the Hemsworths are like the new Baldwins. And Luke is the older Baldwin in this case.
Yeah.
And the less successful Baldwin in this case. But he holds it down strong as Ashley Stubbs, which, by the way, is one of my favorite male names that is a female name but sounds very masculine. Ashley Stubbs. Like if you think like the name Ashley is so female, but then you say Ashley Stubbs and you're like right back to male. You're just right back to male.
Yeah. Giving a guy the name Ashley is an indictment to just pretty much be super masculine as possible to avoid the name for the rest of your life.
Yeah. I really liked his acting in this. Like it was, I think that Luke Hemsworth is one of the best actors in season 3, and his portrayal of Ashley Stubbs is really genuine. When he would talk to Bernard, and like there was like this feigned friendship between them, where like Bernard would kind of, be like, yeah, you're my boy, right? Like we're best friends, right? And like Ashley Stubbs would respond, be like, I fucking hate you, bro. Or I'm paraphrasing right now, but like his response was always like, fuck you. I don't like you. And I loved it. It was so genuine in the delivery.
Yeah.
That being said, Broadcaster Nickels, what was your miss?
Miss was probably my boy Marshawn Lynch and that other chick.
Proud Wakandan black woman with no hair.
She had Wesley Snipes Demolition Man hair.
Did she? I thought she was completely bald.
She had the blonde.
Okay,
kind of 1-inch fro going or something.
Okay, 1-inch fro. Gotcha.
Maybe I don't know what the precise measurement is. But
so you think Beast Mode was a miss, huh?
I think it was just corny. They could have. I felt like their characters could have been utilized more instead of just being some like stupid side background characters. They when they show up in the series, it's just so out of nowhere. It's like, am I supposed to believe that these people care enough about the main characters where they're just going to show up in the midst of this chaos and just be like, yeah, dude, you're our leader, bruh.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that whole thing was a little bizarre. And it kind of goes to show you how disjointed the final half of the season is. It's like a proof positive what you're talking about right now. Is they're just things that happen where you're like, okay, I could believe this happened, but where's the buildup? You did not build this up at all. It just happens.
It's just not right, man.
It's not. And
it's not fucking right.
You know what else isn't right? That would be my miss, which is Aaron Paul as Caleb.
Unanimous miss, triple miss.
Dude. Like, okay. What the fuck was your plan with this character? You start off with this weird, like, post-traumatic stress, like, Afghanistan war veteran guy who's, like, just trying to, like, make a life for himself. And you, like, create this weird little fucking storyline with his friend that was killed in action with him. And you end up making him the murderer of his friend. To what end? None of it had an end. His character was so paper thin.
That was really poetically deep right there. None of it ends.
It doesn't. And not only was the writing for Caleb so bad, his acting was equally as bad. It's almost like Aaron Paul was like, he read the script and he's like, okay, I'm going to put this writing level at a 3 out of 10. My acting is now locked in at a 3 out of 10 and I'm going to match this shit. I swear to God, he literally matched it. It's almost poetic how well it goes together. The bad acting with the bad writing. But something's got to give. And in this case, it was Aaron Paul, who is now going to be the star of season 4 based off of the post-credit sequence. Or no, the pre-credit sequence with Maeve. He is going to be the star of season 4. Dolores is dead. Well, the hot Dolores, the actual Dolores that we like. But of course, the hale, evil version of Dolores is still alive, who's going to be the villain of season 4 against Jesse Pinkman, the hero of season 4. Bad acting to go around, everyone. No shortage.
Not like this.
That being said, Broadcaster Nickels, what is your whiff?
Aaron Paul is terrible. I'm not going to pretty it up anymore. I just don't like his acting.
Nah.
All right? Period.
Yeah. He wasn't good in it.
It's terrible. And, yeah, I think he should die gonorrhea and burn in hell. No, I'm just kidding.
Laces out. All right. Well, my whiff is killing off Dolores. How dare you, Jonathan Nolan? How dare you kill off the only goddamn character I liked in that show at this point? You made every character so lame, so shitty, that I have like equal hate for almost everyone in the show. I love Dolores, and you're like, you know what? The one character we're going to kill off in this show is going to be Dolores. Dolores is gone. You're never going to see.
I think she wanted out.
She did, probably. Evan Rachel Wood, the beautiful blonde chick that plays Dolores, is gone. She's dead. She's gone. It's over. And what we will get in season 4 is the hale version of Dolores, which isn't Dolores.
That's not true. We might get a reanimated body. So it might still be Evan Rachel Wood.
I don't think so. They were very particular. The way that they frame this, the way they set it up, they want you to know that Dolores is dead. I think. The way they did that, I think they were basically telling people, this Dolores is dead, but hey, guess what? We made all these clones of Dolores, right? So now you get to see Dolores and other actors. Oh, that's a convenient excuse, isn't it?
Yes. This is an opportune time to bring up the Westworld spinoff that's planned on Skinamax called Dolores and Friends, my favorite private production that I am accepting applications for now.
I would subscribe to that only.
Evan Rachel Woods
immediately.
Please at me, slide into my DMs, like the kids say.
Yeah. Well, on that note, Broadcaster Nickels, as you know, here on the Crack Cellar Podcast, we use the official, patented Joker rating system. On that system, what do you rate Season 3 of Westworld?
I say with a heavy heart that it is getting one shitty ass Jared Leto.
Oh shit, you're giving it to Leto.
I'm giving it that fat Leto.
Oh, damn.
Just because I'm holding it to the last 2 seasons and it just sucked.
Mm.
You know, it's all right when you stand alone, but you can't do that with Season 3. It was unacceptable with how much of a letdown Season 3 ultimately became.
Yeah. Yeah, when you're comparing it to itself, it's damning, for sure. And comparing it to itself, I will also not give it a Jared Leto. I will not give it a Jared Leto because I don't think it was that bad, but I will give it a strong Caesar. I'm going to give this a Caesar Romero. I think that there are some few bright spots in this season of Westworld that show you glimpses of possible non-fuckery. But most of it is a lot of fuckery. And man, did the ending suck. Like, has there been a show where the ending of a season knocked so many points off the score as Westworld Season 3, as far as I'm concerned? It was a horrible ending. It was not worthy of Westworld. And with that, we will close out.
I'm going to look up deep fake porno of Evan Rachel Woods now.